Donald Trump just killed the biggest money loophole in e-commerce history. For years, sellers have been shipping products to America completely tax-free while you've been paying full price. And that loophole, known as Section 321, fueled the rise of Temu, Aliexpress Dropshipping, and thousands of cross-border sellers. Well, this unfair advantage just got destroyed. Now, every package, whether it's from China, Mexico, Canada, or anywhere else, will be hit with tariffs and massive handling fees. And for some products, that adds up to a 30 to 500% penalty on top of your costs. Today, I'm breaking down what this means for dropshipping, Temu, and your entire e-commerce business model, and why you need to act fast to stay ahead. By the way, if you're new to my channel, my name is Steve. I run a 7-figure store over at bumblebeelinens.com, and I've imported from China for over 18 years. So if you want no BS advice from someone who's actually selling, then make sure to subscribe. And with that being said, let's get right into it. So first, let's talk about the loophole that fueled cheap cross-border e-commerce for years. Section 321. It was a US Customs rule that let any shipment valued at $800 or less enter duty-free. If you bought a $20 gadget on Aliexpress, a $12 phone case on Temu, or even a $5 handkerchief from a small overseas seller, that package could zip through customs for free. And this loophole was applied per package, not per person or per day in total. Sellers figured out fast that if they split shipments or shipped directly to customers instead of in bulk, they could dodge US import duties entirely. This is why companies like Temu could offer rock-bottom prices and free shipping while still making a profit. They weren't paying the tariffs domestic sellers had to deal with. It also gave rise to the entire low-ticket dropshipping industry. Sellers in the United States would never touch inventory. They'd just list a product, take the order, and have it shipped directly from a Chinese warehouse, duty-free thanks to Section 321 or de minimis. Some brands even got creative, parking inventory in Canada or Mexico, and then shipping small packages across the border just to stay under the $800 limit. But that's a loophole that just got closed. On August 29th, the $800 de minimis threshold is gone for everyone, no matter where the shipment comes from or what is inside. So here's what this new executive order actually changes and why it affects almost every cross-border seller. As I mentioned earlier, there's no more de minimis exemption. Every package coming in the US, whether it's a $5 trinket or a $5,000 bulk shipment, is going to have tariffs applied. But the rules are slightly different depending on how your package gets here. If you've been importing in bulk through commercial carriers like FedEx, UPS, or DHL, you're in the clear. You'll keep paying tariffs at the standard Most Favored Nations rate, or MFN rate, and this new policy won't change much for you. But if you ship through the International Postal Network, like China Post, Canada Post, Royal Mail, or anything that hands off to USPS, you're under a whole new system. You'll still pay tariffs, but they're based on the IEEPA rates instead of MFN. IEEPA stands for the International Emergency Economic Powers Act. And these are special country-specific tariff rates that can change fast and in some cases stack on top of each other. And there's more. Postal shipments now have 3 new major requirements. Now, you must declare the country of origin for every package. Duties had to be collected before the package ships, and USPS will not bill the recipient at delivery anymore. But this is the big one. You must now pay a flat handling fee of $80 to $200 per shipment. That means if you're running a Temu-style or AliExpress-style dropshipping operation, you now have to bake those tariffs and handling fees into your checkout process. You can't push that cost to the customer later. In other words, the business model that made ultra-cheap, duty-free imports possible just got flipped on its head. Now let's talk numbers, because this is where most e-commerce sellers are in for a shock. If you are dropshipping individual products into the US from anywhere, not just China, via the US Postal Service, you're screwed. Instead of MFN, you'll get charged IEEPA rates, which are special country-specific tariffs set by executive order. For China right now, that's about 30% under the temporary truce. But if that truce expires, those rates will jump to 44%. And as I mentioned before, the nail in the coffin is that you now have to pay a handling fee of $80 to $200 per shipment. Here's what that means in plain terms. Let's say you sell a $20 item from China. If you ship to the US in bulk via the normal commercial route, we're talking 15 to 30% in duties or $3 to $6 in extra cost, which isn't a big deal. But if you go the postal route today, it's at least 30% plus $80 to $200. So that $20 product now costs $100 to $220 plus another $6 for tariffs. So basically, it's game over. This is why you're going to see massive changes in how cross-border sellers price, market, and even ship their products. By the way, if you are interested in starting your own profitable online store this year, make sure you sign up for my free 6-day e-commerce mini course below. It's 100% free, and I guarantee you'll learn a ton. Now let's break down what all this means for different types of e-commerce businesses, because the impact isn't the same across the board. Let's talk about Aliexpress Dropshipping first. Most Aliexpress orders are shipped through the postal network, China Post, or similar, which means that you're now looking at 30% duties right away, plus an extra $80 to $200. The only way to survive is to either raise prices, move your inventory into the US, or find suppliers in lower tariff countries. Now let's say you're Temu. Temu is built almost entirely on the Section 321 postal loophole. They consolidate orders in China, ship them in bulk, and then hand them off to USPS. But now, every single package needs tariffs paid before shipping. They'll either eat that cost, which will crush their margins, or pass it on to customers. So expect price hikes, fewer $1.98 free shipping deals, and more US warehousing for their best-selling items. Now what about Amazon FBA sellers and Shopify store owners importing from China? If you're shipping containers or pallets into Amazon's US warehouses, you've already been paying duties, so Section 321 changes do not really affect you much at all. But you won't be able to use small postal shipments to dodge tariffs anymore. And the playing field is more level between you and low-ticket postal importers, which is a good thing. Now, as for the small cross-border sellers, if you're in Canada, Europe, or Asia selling directly to US customers, you now have to collect duties and taxes at checkout for every order. And that means setting up delivery duty paid, or DDP systems, updating checkout software, and possibly explaining to customers why prices just went up. So bottom line, the ultra-cheap duty-free import game is over. And the businesses that adapt by changing fulfillment methods, adjusting their product mix, or rethinking sourcing will survive. And the ones that don't, they'll be out of the US market in months. Now let's talk about the operational nightmare this creates, because the policy shift is one thing, but the reality of making it work in 30 days is another. Now for the commercial carriers, they're just going to adjust pretty smoothly. FedEx, UPS, and DHL, they already have fully electronics customs clearance systems tied into CPB's database. And for them, it's literally just flipping a switch to remove the $800 exemption and charge tariffs on every shipment. But the postal network, that is a completely different story. Right now, a lot of international mail processing is still manual. Some ports of entry literally have one customs officer looking at the package label and deciding if it needs paperwork. And now that might work when only a small fraction of packages require duties, but now it's all of them. Now for shipping in places like Canada, Europe, or Asia, this is a 180-degree turn. Many have never built DDP systems at scale because most of their US-bound packages were under $800 and sailed through duty-free. And now they've got to rework their tech, retrain their staff, and coordinate with the CPB all in a single month. So expect delays, expect packages stuck in limbo, and expect some sellers to stop shipping to the US entirely until they all figure this out. This is why you're going to see chaos in the postal stream at first, while the commercial stream keeps humming along just fine. So who comes out ahead and who takes the hit? Well, let's start with the winners. Domestic US sellers, especially the small and mid-sized brands who've been competing against ultra-cheap duty-free imports, finally have a level playing field. Temu, Aliexpress dropshippers, and other overseas sellers will now have to pay the same tariffs that you do. If you source your products in the US, this shift works even more in your favor because any increase in landed costs for imports makes locally produced goods that much more competitive. Commercial carriers are also in good shape. They're already set up to handle duty collection, so the transition will be seamless. And in fact, some overseas sellers might switch from postal to FedEx, UPS, or DHL just to avoid the chaos that's about to hit the postal network. Now for the losers. Temu and Aliexpress sellers are in serious trouble because their free shipping, low margin model depended entirely on Section 321. When tariffs jump to 30 to 55%, that either forces them to raise prices, accept razor-thin margins, or both. And low-ticket dropshippers are in the same boat. So if you're making $5 on a $15 item, those tariffs wipe you out unless you move inventory stateside or find suppliers in lower tariff countries. Foreign postal services are also going to take a huge hit. Canada Post, Royal Mail, Australia Post, all of them now have to collect duties at the point of origin for every package headed to the United States. And that is a massive operational overhaul, and with only 30 days to prepare, it's going to be messy. And here's the gray area. Bulk importers, those bringing in full containers or pallets, already pay tariffs, so they aren't going to be affected very much. And in fact, they might even benefit because the small postal-based competitors are going to disappear. But if your sourcing is heavily China dependent, the new tariff rates will still sting, but it's generally not going to be that big of a deal. So the short version, if your business has been coasting on the $800 loophole, you're in trouble. If you've been competing against those who have, you just got a boost. So what should you do as an e-commerce seller right now? If your business depends on shipping products into the US duty-free, you have to start making changes right now. And the first step is figuring exactly how much these new tariffs will hit your margins. That means running the numbers for your best-selling products, factoring in the MFN or IEEPA rates, plus any Section 301 surcharges if you're importing from China. Once you know the impact, you can decide whether to raise prices, switch suppliers, or move some or all of your inventory into the US. So you're importing in bulk instead of one package at a time. Now, if you're using the postal stream, you need to get a DDP system in place right away. USPS will not collect duties from your customers anymore, so the responsibility is on you to charge them at checkout and remit the payment before the package even ships. That may mean upgrading your checkout software or working with a logistics provider who can handle it all for you. But the bottom line is this: you have a tiny window to adapt, and the businesses that act now will survive this transition. But the ones who wait, they're going to be the ones wondering why their packages are stuck in customs and their margins are gone. Now that you understand the changes in the new de minimis rules, make sure you watch this video here on how the dropshipping game has changed forever.